And welcome back to Take Action News, everybody. David Shuster here on this Saturday afternoon, December the 15th. I know many of you are listening to us over We Act Radio with stations in Chicago and Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Columbus, Ohio, and Oklahoma, and others are listening to us on weactradio.com or on takeactionnews.com. And some of you are actually watching us right now. A special welcome to everybody who is watching our live stream on takeactionnews.com or on YouTube, Take Action News TV. It's so great to have you being part of this program. And again, at your convenience, the show is posted at Take Action News TV. So if you miss any part of the show, clips are posted later. And we love this live video broadcast that we are doing now. We've been talking for the last hour and a half about what happened in Connecticut and various policies and proposals and what Congress could conceivably do. We now want to bring in a guest who can talk about what Congress might actually do. And again, there's so many things that have been introduced in Congress before. There's the gun show loophole. There's the assault weapons ban, which was allowed to expire. There was the Brady bill, all sorts of legislation that Congress has taken up. But it's important to remember that at least over the last 7 or 8 years, Congress has been unwilling to really do anything. That there was obviously assault weapons ban that was passed during the Clinton administration. But over the last several years, it has really been it's been tough for Congress. It's been tough to get Congress to do anything. And despite the massacres of Columbine and Virginia Tech and Aurora, Colorado, and now Newtown, Connecticut, sometimes getting Congress to take up gun control and reasonable gun control, there's just so much money that the National Rifle Association is able to bring to bear that a lot of politicians are nervous about taking it up. And in fact, to make the point, Mitch, if we can, I want to run. There's a clip of President Obama from one of the presidential debates where he's talking about the sort of gun control and gun policy. And keep in mind that this was not an issue that President Obama really wanted to tackle in his first term. And I think it's fair to say that at least until yesterday, this was not an issue that the White House felt they wanted to spend any time on taking up in the second term. But here's a clip of President Obama from one of the presidential debates this fall talking about the issue of gun control and gun policy.
We're a nation that believes in the Second Amendment, and I believe in the Second Amendment. We've got a long tradition of hunting and sportsmen and people who want to make sure they can protect themselves. But there have been too many instances during the course of my presidency where I've had to comfort families who've lost somebody, most recently out in Aurora.
So, again, I mean, a lot of empathy from the president and a lot of sort of being bewildered at why our society has not been able to do this. But again, in terms of sort of politics, there hasn't been sort of much of a political will in Congress to be able to do this. I want to see if we can bring in Daniel Newhauser. He is a congressional reporter for Roll Call. And he's been covering Congress for some time, and he joins us also on video via Google+. Daniel, great to see you. Thanks for being part of Take Action News. What do you make of the political impact on Congress that the Newtown, Connecticut massacre will have? Well, I'm not sure, Daniel, whether I can, whether anybody's able to hear you, because I can't hear you. Mitch, and why don't you weigh in and let me know, is at least our audience able to hear?
Yeah, no, we're
okay. So we're still working on some technical issues, Daniel. We can see you, and we're going to try to figure out whether or not why we can't necessarily.
Is it working a little bit better now?
Yeah, there it is. All right, there we go. Right. We got it now.
So sorry.
That's all right, no worries. It's it's complicated because we're trying to do all this for everybody who's listening on the radio. We're also doing this live video stream, and it's not easy, but we're getting there. So we're talking about the reaction in Congress. What do you think the reaction will be to what happened in Connecticut?
Well, already we saw a pretty typical reaction. A lot of Democrats came out and put out statements sort of the day of, immediately afterwards, saying that this is this should renew the call for gun control legislation. I haven't seen any statements from Republicans yet that indicate that they're open to any kind of gun control legislation. But of course, we did see a lot of condolences, and that came from everybody. So everybody's kind of feeling heartbroken about this. The same kind of reaction we saw after Aurora, but maybe even more because at the end of the day, we're talking about children here. It was just such a horrible thing.
Do you think that this moves the needle politically with the White House, and that the president is perhaps now obligated, in addition to sort of being the helping the nation grieve, that to come next week there's some obligation on the White House to say, okay, here's the legislation that we support, or here's what we would like Congress to do?
It's interesting. Yesterday, somebody made a petition to the White House. These sort of public petitions. If they get 25,000 signatures, the White House has to respond to it. In one day, it already had over 75,000. So they will now have to respond. And this petition was calling for immediate legislation. Now, we haven't heard anything definitive from the president. We've heard him say that there needs to be meaningful action, and he said, politics shouldn't factor into this. But what that exactly means, we don't know. And we know that he's been on record in support of an assault rifle ban. This ban that ran out in 2004 that was in place for a decade. It was instituted during the Clinton administration. And Press Secretary Jay Carney said yesterday or the day before that he reiterated the president's support for that. And what the president would support beyond that, we don't know yet.
Do you get the sense that there are even some Republicans in Congress now that, look, 20 kindergartners gunned down, it's just the most horrific thing you can imagine. Does that at least start to say, okay, even if some Republicans, look, we support the Second Amendment, we believe people have a right to have weapons, but there's nothing wrong with closing the gun show loophole and making sure that criminals and people who have mental issues are not able to just buy these guns at gun shows?
Well, it's interesting because we don't actually know that any of those two factors played a role in this particular killing. So there is a sort of an out there. I guess there's a lot of sketchy information right now, and things are still being worked out. But it seems like this young man had a personality disorder. It seems like the guns were perhaps owned by the family. How he was able to procure them, we don't exactly know yet. So I don't know what specifically Congress would have to address. Now, whether Republicans are going to say, okay, yes, now it's time to do gun control, it's highly doubtful. And add to that, there's a lot of red state Democrats who would probably be skeptical of any kind of efforts to control guns as well.
Well, you're right about sort of the facts in terms of what happened in Newtown, and that these were guns that were legally obtained by Adam Lanza's mother, and then there was obviously Adam grabbed them and used one of them to kill her. I think one of the things we were talking about earlier is the technology exists right now to have essentially what's known as smart guns, and that is you have to either have a certain sort of fingerprint in order to be able to use your weapon, so that if somebody else grabs them or steals them from you, then the guns cannot be used, that they are essentially jammed. Right. That technology exists, and yet Congress has been slow to even sort of consider that kind of thing. Could that change?
Maybe. I've got to say that the way that the president came out in his speech both today and yesterday, and he started crying. I guess I haven't seen him so passionate about that issue, or maybe any other issue. You've got to assume that the president will do what he says, that he will try to take some kind of meaningful action. But that might just stop at the halls of Congress, because you've got to remember Republicans control the House. John Boehner voted against the assault rifle ban in 1994, as did a lot of other Republicans. You remember Jack Brooks, the Judiciary Committee chairman, the Democrat from Texas at that time, who sponsored the bill that had the assault rifle ban. He was unelected, basically because he helped pass that. He was thrown out of office. This is a very, very touchy issue, and it's going to be hard for a lot of Republicans and Southern Democrats to get on board with it.
We're talking with Daniel Newhauser, who's a congressional reporter for Roll Call, and we're talking about potential for gun legislation in Congress. Daniel, there's going to be obviously a lot of political pressure on a lot of members to do more than just lower the flag, which they did in Washington yesterday. How does this play out in your view in terms of does Congress have hearings? Do they sort of take a step towards gun control legislation just to sort of appease the public right now, even if there may not eventually be votes or anything passed?
Perhaps. We did see Kathy McMorris Rogers, who's a Republican in the House. She's going to be the conference chairwoman. She did open the door to some kind of hearings, but said that you've got to be careful when you're talking about gun control. You got to look at the key players here in Congress, right? You've got Harry Reid and you've got John Boehner. Now, we know where John Boehner stands, but Harry Reid up until 2010 was getting money from the NRA as well. He's from Nevada. not by any stretch of the imagination a state that is pro-gun control. So he's got to worry about his constituency as well. But we've got people under him like Chuck Schumer, who was the original sponsor of the assault rifle ban. So and Carolyn Maloney, whose husband was killed in a gun incident, actually said that she's going to put a lot of pressure. She said, this is different now. I'm going to really put pressure on the president to do something. So you got to think that there will be some kind of action taken. Whether that's going to result in legislation, I'm skeptical about.
One of the tools that's on our website, and this will be the last question before we let you go, and that is a tool called PopVox, and that is a way of sort of contacting your member of Congress with just a couple of clicks. They know that you're a constituent, that you're in their district, you're a voter. How important is it now to members of Congress, even sort of a lame duck session or in the beginning in January of the next Congress, for them to actually hear in some fashion from their constituents on these issues?
I think that's probably the most important thing, because when these things happen, there's a lot of public outcry. There's a lot of grief, but then eventually it always subsides, and then members of Congress kind of realize, the fire is not under me anymore. I guess I don't really have to do anything. Now, if there's a continued public pressure, continued action and cries from constituents, or God forbid, if something like this happens again, which they've been happening so much, it seems like it's inevitable, then Congress will be even more. There'll be even more impetus for Congress to act. So I think it's chief right now for people to make their voices heard if anything's going to get done.
Daniel Newhauser, congressional reporter for Roll Call. Daniel, thanks for being part of Take Action News, not only our radio show, but also our live video stream on takeactionnews.com. We appreciate you joining us. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
You're very welcome, of course. And by the way, coming up, we're going to talk to Alan Rosenblatt about the social media component to gun policy, the gun violence yesterday. That's coming up. But we're going to change gears for our next segment. This was a fascinating week in terms of union busting efforts. There was some known as right-to-work legislation that passed in Michigan. We will explain what that is and why it is such a big deal. We'll be talking with a Michigan State Representative Brandon Dillon on the other side of this break. You're listening and watching to Take Action News.